This episode is extra special for me because I've done a little collab loan trial with Canon. For this, they loaned me 2 R50s. And for this episode, me and Bailey had a camera each on us. It went awry a little bit later in the episode. You'll notice it. But the cameras are beautiful. I'm really excited. And a special thank you to Canon for loaning me the cameras for this episode to give it a go, trying to get this podcast on YouTube. I hope you love it. Bailey is one half of the beautiful brand Baina, and she has tastemakers all over the world in awe of what she and Anna have created. In this episode, we literally pull apart her creative direction concepts and how she pulls together shoots.
Those materials of like the hard concrete and again like the grid-like formation that those concrete slabs created.
And how this seasonless brand stays true to its core purpose and style despite the demands of the retail world. Once you see the level of care and articulation that the girls put into Baina purely in the essence of bathing and that whole world, you can't unsee it. Let's dive in.
But it starts with more like, okay, Submerge. This time I really want to look at like ocean bathing, or like I really want to look at like being alone at the beach, and like kind of plays out this narrative, right?
Okay.
And then we look for talent.
Yeah.
And I will either be like, I saw this beautiful girl here, or I saw this beautiful girl here, and wherever I might have seen them, I will have saved them to my phone because I'll be like, one day I want to shoot with that person.
Okay.
And then there's like, we have a board of women that we would love to shoot with at some point, women and men. And then it's like, that would be cool. This would work.
Yeah.
This would look great together. This makes sense. But, you know, for that shoot that we did, I just saw the most incredible photo of her, and then I started following her on Instagram, and then it was like, this would be so beautiful.
Yeah.
But not like, it's never there, like, it would never be like, we need to shoot a man. We need to shoot, like, oh, no. In fact, I just can't even imagine.
But it's so that's
No,
how.
I know, and I get it. But, yeah, nah.
But yeah, not for
me,
you.
Not for me. No.
But I'm very excited because I'm obsessed with it.
It's like a first date.
Sure.
But like a really interesting one where you've stalked me on Instagram
Yes,
first.
I've stalked the brand down enough to know that Baina is Bailey and Anna put together.
Ooh.
Which is right, isn't it?
It is right, but it's not a secret. It's just not something I personally shout about.
Okay, do you want me to delete
No,
it?
not at all.
We'll start again.
Everyone knows. I mean, a lot of people know that. I just like, did you find it on the internet? Is that how much it's known? Okay.
No, it was on some sort of press piece.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
There's one.
It's Bailey
I read it
Meredith.
on one, but it's cool.
Thanks.
And I also am obsessed with the copy that you guys say that it's Antipodean.
Yes.
I didn't know what that was.
No
I knew
one
the
does.
word, but I was like, am I an antipode? Like what? What would I be? Antipodean?
I always thought the Antipodean is like the collection of New Zealand and Australia.
Right. So a person from New Zealand and Australia is
Or like, you know, if you're talking about down and like, and oh my goodness, you've put me on the spot.
in the antipodes. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, that could be a thing. I think it can be whatever we want it to be. It's fancy
sick.
word that combines New Zealand and Australia. Because
Why has no brand ever used that before?
they do.
I don't know
I
if
think
they do.
No, they bring it out and then people go, huh? And then they go, retract.
Okay.
We've stuck with it.
stuck.
We're just
It's
like, if you
very
don't know what
good.
it is, don't worry
Bite
about
me.
it.
Yeah, it's just a bougie word.
But I think, you know, it is because we're two Kiwis that started a business in Australia. Australia feels like just as much our home market as New Zealand does.
Yes.
And we don't, you know, it is weird when someone says Australian brand, especially to a New Zealander, and vice versa. Like if
A Kiwi
here
brand.
and people are like, oh, that's that Kiwi brand. I'm like, well, I live in Australia. We started the brand in Australia.
Yeah.
Like, it's fluid, guys.
Yeah.
It's fluid. There's no
Yeah.
labels.
Across the pond,
Yeah.
fluidity. Yes, nice. So how did it actually start? Because you guys are towels.
Yes, we are towels.
The most beautiful towels I've ever seen. I got
thank you.
gifted one in 2019 for my birthday by my main editor. She gave me one towel, the green, what do you call your green one?
Is it a pool towel?
Yeah,
The Roman.
the Roman, and probably one of the best gifts I've ever received. And now I am imagining myself populating the entire set. I haven't
Absolutely.
gotten around to it yet, but I will.
But the beauty of it is you don't need to, you know, rush. Like,
Yes.
that colourway was one of the first colourways that we put into the collection, and still to this day is one of the strongest performing colourways.
It's
And it will always be a staple
stunning.
in, you know, within the brand. So you've got time.
Amazing. It's not a SKU that's going to run out.
No,
I love that for
not
me.
at all.
So how did you decide on towels?
Where to begin? So
I guess where did the appetite begin to do something together?
Well, Anna and I have been friends since we were 14.
Okay.
And so we went through high school together in New Zealand, and then we worked in fashion for the first decade of our careers. I studied fashion design at uni, and I always thought that my life would be in fashion. And then fast forward to 2017, and we moved to Melbourne, my husband and I, and Anna followed maybe 6 months later, and we both started working at Jardin, the Australian furniture design business. And it was there, essentially, that the idea to move away from fashion and actually create a business within that sort of homewares and interior space. I think, we had always mused on this idea of starting a business together, and I think we just naturally assumed it would be in fashion when the time came. And then after working at Jardin for a couple of years and being exposed to this like very different design discipline, but also that had so many similarities to fashion, we were like, this is a really interesting and exciting place to play. And I remember telling this story about how we started Bainer to someone in the very early days, and they were like, you did this backwards. And I was like, oh. I remember being kind of, not offended, but a little bit like put out in the sense of, had we done something wrong? But essentially, we'd made the decision, the time felt right in our lives to take that leap and actually start a business together that we'd been talking about for so long. We knew we wanted it to be in the homeware space, but it actually came from us talking about things that we wanted in the sense of like, okay, we want to work with a product that doesn't have a size curve, and there's no seasonality, and it's gender neutral, and it's really like straightforward in a way of, fashion manufacturing is such a nightmare, and there's constantly, challenges and dramas and issues, and so there were all these things, and calendars and deadlines and, like sales periods and all of that. Like I was like, I don't want to be in that world anymore. Like I'm exhausted by all of that and putting all of that like emotional energy into a product, and then it being, at full price for 15 weeks and then watching it like slash and burn if it didn't sell out. It's just quite brutal, and it's like exhausting. And so I didn't want to do that. And so we were just having these conversations for like, I reckon at least 6 months, if not longer, before we actually landed on towels. And so we started there, and those were the conversations that were happening. And then it was like, but hang on. I was like, I dedicated my life to fashion. Like I'm obsessed with it. And even in the way that I feel somewhat beaten down by it, it's still like my first design language, and I need to be passionate about this thing that we create. Like I need an emotional connection to it. And so then that conversation started, and one day Anna was like, well, we love bathing. Like we love taking baths. Like, is there something in the bathroom space? And I was like, well, there's no cool towels, and there's no one doing interesting, different towels. And towels still feels familiar enough to me because it's a textile, and I still think we could, like still have that creative challenges and experience together, while also omitting all of those like things that we didn't want to take into this new business. And so that's sort of, I think, how we landed on towels. But when I say that whole building it backwards, like we also came up with like what kind of business we wanted and like what kind of culture we wanted, and that was, spurred from our previous experience. And like if we want to be able to be business owners that do XYZ, or we want to be managers that operate in this way, and we want to have an inclusive, like collaborative team. And I don't know, there was just all these things were nutted out until we actually got to the product.
Yeah. Very curated.
Yeah. I think naturally maybe that just is inherent in both of us.
So you are the co-founder and creative director. What is Anna's title?
Anna is currently the head of commercial sales.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So does that speak to both of your experience previous to founding?
Kind of, yeah. So not to be a dick, but
Safe space. Don't worry about it.
my title's CEO and Creative Director.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay.
No, because I think that explains how like our two roles work within the business.
Okay.
So when we started, obviously for the first I'm trying to think when we hired our first staff member. It was the end of 2020. So for the first 18 months of operating, it was just Anna and I. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it was pretty fluid in terms of our responsibilities. Like I had done production in my fashion experience, so I was managing the technical side of that with the factory. She had definitely a heavier sales background. I had done sales, but it's not where I naturally sit. It's not like a place that I feel overly comfortable in.
Yeah.
I feel I can do it, but like she's insane. Like just her strategy brain and how she works and how she can see opportunity.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little cynical, whereas she's got optimism, you know, and I don't know, she's just a joy to be around. So she naturally can just vibe with anyone. And so sales has always, come really naturally to her. So yeah, in the beginning it was fluid. And then as we started to hire staff, again, we kind of still sat as directors, but she was overseeing sales and I was more like creative direction and operations, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it was only sort of the end of last year that we really sort of set out and defined like what our roles were. And she's got a young son, and so she wanted to sort of be able to get that real work-life balance, which I so appreciate and respect. And so she, we wanted to sort of just like tighten up her role a bit, and again, like stay in sales. And so we have this new sort of direction in the business, which is a commercial line of toweling that we're soft launching at the moment. So we're not making any noise publicly about it, but she's really driving that project and that new arm of the business, and that's her focus for this year.
Okay.
Whereas I will, try to drive the business through strategy, and I manage the team. And then, work very closely with our head of marketing on all of our creative direction and photo shoots, and then somewhere in there I throw in design, and Anna and I like work together. Like I'll probably drive it a bit more, but then we collaborate together on the creative of it.
Because it's towels, you guys are obviously, you're not kind of addressing that fashion calendar at all. And there's a word that Shanna Bessam, the jewelry designer, used it wasn't collectionless, but it was like
seasonless.
It was like along those lines of that, and then but being in that space allowed him to remain really, really lean because he wasn't frantic about design. It was kind of like it allowed the inspiration to come to him, and when it wasn't necessarily floating around, he was able to be rigid and be on 9 to 5 kind of hours, trying to grow.
Totally.
So it's
certainly. It needs to come to me. Like I can't just flick on the creative brain, especially if I'm really in that, organized, strategic, operational
Are they very
brain.
different? Do they look like different parts of you? Or are you organized with your creativity?
I'm still organized with my creativity, I think. I listened to a podcast, again, names, can never remember them, but the creative director of Tibby.
Tibby.
Amy, someone, I think. And she talked about it. And again, this little anecdote is useless without the details, but the way she described her creative process really spoke to me. It was like something like pragmatic creativity or something like that. And I was like, that's me. Like you know how there's like true creatives that can work in mess and like.
Yes. I was reading the Sofia Coppola new archive book, and the photos of her office are
wild.
Oh. There is stuff everywhere, but in a beautiful, chaotic, because obviously you know that the byproduct of that, or the result, if you will, is virgin suicides or whatever. But so you're like, whoa, like that's crazy. Yeah. And then this beautiful coffee table book has actually seen that photo and then actually organized all the important pieces to scan and be a coffee table book. Get yourself on. It's crazy. But looking through that and then just looking at what her office is like when she's in the thick of her work, I'm like,
and it's so funny because you can really easily read into that too. I'm like, am I truly a creative if I don't live in
I'm
chaos.
tidy and I love stationery.
Exactly. And I love order and I love like,
my drawers.
Exactly.
Clean.
I'm a little bit like crazy when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll have these like moments where until I can't be creative until my mind feels calm. So whether it's like what's going on at work or even, as you say, like organizing a messy drawer or like cleaning up my wardrobe or something that just I need to like almost transition and
create order.
Phase. Yeah, and create order so that my brain doesn't feel like it's on overload.
It's fascinating. But I feel like every person that is truly messy and like throw everything at a wall kind of creative, they always have a technician of sorts that organizes them.
Yes.
Like they are chaotic, but I have never seen a chaotic person that doesn't have a teammate succeed. Like Walt Disney had a technician right next to him at all times that grew the business with him so that he could just do the shit, do everything brilliantly, be messy, and someone else picked the order.
Wow.
If you're an independent that's doing both, but people that do both have to have it, otherwise they don't succeed.
No, and I think I have both.
I mean, so far so good, right?
Yeah.
In the early days, you said that you had your textiles kind of manufacturing down pat because of your experience with Jardin. Does that mean that you knew from the get-go who you would want to manufacture these towels? Because they're in Portugal, right?
Totally, yeah. So
is the first batch of towels that you ever got from the same place that they were first manufactured?
Yeah,
or
we still have the same manufacturer. We have a few more because of our size, but we are still working with that same manufacturer from the very beginning.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, that was, again, as I said to you in the beginning, about that process of what we wanted. Like we knew, again, coming from fashion, like no fashion good or like homewares or anything like that is truly sustainable in the sense of we're impacting and we're like adding to the planet.
Yeah.
But again, we just wanted to be as conscious around those decisions and try to be as educated and responsible as you can be when creating product, like I think for us, one of the biggest things was working with organic cotton, and so we work with a GOTS certified mill, and we ourselves as a brand are certified. There's a lot of not misinformation, I think just purely uneducation around how that GOTS certification works, and you as a business have to be certified if you want to claim that, because it's essentially you have to audit the entire chain of custody.
Yeah.
And so even though Bainer itself is not manufacturing that product, we still have staff and we still have to abide by certain like expectations to meet that certification requirement. So I went off on a tangent there, but essentially, making in Portugal, because we did our research and again, like we knew from experience and things like that, Portugal has an incredible like textile industry, specifically in towels. It's this amazing sort of community of manufacturers. There's about maybe 12 to 15 of them, all in an area outside of Porto, about an hour out in a sort of kind of industrial rural area, and they're all owned by different families and they've all been passed down by generations, and it's quite, I think can become quite incestuous in terms of the way that the staff move around the different companies to gain their experience. But essentially they all go for lunch at the same restaurants, and like the different owners of the different businesses, and then there's textile fairs held in Frankfurt in Germany, and they're all there, and for the most part, I think they're all pretty civil and friendly towards each other. I'm sure there's a little bit of rivalry out there, but like it's a nice way of doing business.
Yeah.
I've, from fashion, it's mainly my fashion background that the manufacturing experience comes from. And I've manufactured in India, in China, and in New Zealand. I think that's it. So I'd never dealt with like European manufacturers before. And every country has its like pros and cons and like skill sets, but Portugal for the most part is an amazing country to deal with from a manufacturing perspective.
Yeah, I've heard amazing things.
Yeah.
The respect I have for the quality that you've created in the towels, because I have one and I wash it constantly, and I use it as a bath towel as well. I'm not even sure if it's the beach or the bath, but it's beautiful enough to be both, so I don't care. The fluidity is exceptional.
It's meant to it's multifaceted and multi-purpose, so use it wherever you like.
It is the most unbelievable product in terms of how it's held. I don't think I've ever had to snip off a thread. The colour has not gone. It's bow down. I'm obsessed.
Well done for taking good care of it.
Like last night I was out with some friends for dinner and they were like, so what are you doing when you're in Sydney? And I was like, I'm shooting blah, 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 doing some other film work and I'm recording tomorrow. I've got Baina. And they were like, oh, love that. Like there is like a reputation that you have formed and an exposure that you've created around this brand that is just so known among people that know substance and enjoy the finer things in life. And not, I wouldn't say luxury, I'd say premium probably, but in the sense that they just know. Like they know the products that are great and they know all the high street brands because they wear those brands and it just is a way of life for them. Baina is very familiar.
Wow.
How you know that?
I know it on some level, but I still get pinch me moments when, I don't know, like I'll see it in a house somewhere in the US or like I'll meet someone that I admire and I'm always very like conscious about how I introduce myself in new situations and I'll be like, they'll be like, what do you do? And I'll be like, I own a towel brand. And then I will be awkward and uncomfortable and then somehow the name Bainer will come up whether I say it or somebody else and then someone will say, Bainer, you didn't say it was Bainer. And
like, you're like, oh.
I would never leave with that, like, I own Bainer. Like, it just doesn't feel natural.
Well,
to me.
If it's not natural
No,
to you.
but that's the thing. Like, it does surprise me how well known the brand is. And
can we talk about how that kind of happened?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
like from the obviously growth, and the hustle and sales and wholesaling and being in stores like Lee Matthews and all that. So you've kind of done that association with your stockists where it becomes tactile and stuff and people glimpse it in the right places. But aside from that.
But I think that's the thing. I think the way in which we consume news or newness or, discover brands has really changed over the last few years. I think especially with COVID and I don't know if it's an age thing, like as we get older, like the way in which we navigate media, like everything just feels like it's not what it was. And I don't know, I think Anna and I, we spent that first early period of building Baina really connecting with people, just the two of us. Whether that was like through Instagram, like whether it was DMs and customers contacting us or we were the ones on the other end of customer service for so long or, I think there's always been this connection beyond the product. And that's what we've tried to create with the brand. Like Baina is more than just considered toweling. It is a brand that celebrates bathing and the routine of bathing, whatever bathing looks like to the individual. And I think, that's really important to us that Baina does stand for more than just the product as well. And so I think in the way in which we communicate, I think a lot of Baina customers, they lead really busy lives. They appreciate good design, good quality, good materiality. And I think all of that recipe combined has created what we have today. Like, I think that there can be businesses out there that maybe focus on one area too much, whatever that might be, whether it's, the design itself and forget about the quality or it becomes quite faceless in a way and you don't, I think the world we live in too requires a lot more transparency and a lot more connection. Yeah. Whatever that presents itself, but I find it really odd if I find a new brand that I like the look of aesthetically and I go on the website and I have no idea where it came from or who founded it or anything about it. I just think, again, like if I'm investing money in something, I want to know that it came from a place of like authenticity and passion, I guess, as well, and skill. I don't know. There's all these things that I think we don't necessarily think about. They might be in our subconscious, but if it's like that emotional connection, in some way that brand connects to you on a level that speaks to you in whatever form, whether it's design, the ritual of bathing, the content that we're producing, the images that we're sharing, then I think that's what makes a long-lasting impression and provides brand equity.
Yes, 100%. I absolutely agree. Even down to the way that you guys show such archival inspiration on the Instagram. You can tell that you're not necessarily like those posts are those posts, and they're not necessarily a carousel of posts to adhere to the way that the algorithm wants to work. Like
Totally.
the stripped back, slow nature, the way that you guys do that, it speaks to the way that the collections are released.
Yeah. But
And it's
that's the thing, like Anna and I are genuinely inspired by the imagery. You know, like I select that imagery. I was running the Instagram and for a long time actually like running it, and now we have an amazing girl on the team that does a lot of that and like does all of the, you know, all the sorting of like the different content and like, you know, selecting who we work with and stuff. But in terms of that actual imagery that we're selecting to put up there, that comes from like different boards that we've put together that is like stuff that we respond to.
Yeah.
Because again, like it's Anna and I. Like this business is who we are and how we project like the things that we like and the towels that we've created and the bathing experience that we believe in.
Yeah. The timing of it all with COVID, appropriate. I've had Hayley Worley from Sheet Society on the pod, and she so honestly was like, that was because of COVID.
Totally.
And
it was a, I hate, you know, I feel always kind of uncomfortable talking about COVID in a positive way, but it was a positive thing that happened for our business.
Yeah.
You know, we had only launched 6 months prior to COVID hitting. We had a handful of stockists across New Zealand and Australia. I was living in New Zealand. Anna was still living in Melbourne. We went to Paris to sell the collection. Like we got picked up by an agent that was like, I want to take the brand to Europe. And we were like, oh my God, we haven't even been in business for 5 months.
Wow.
And we were in Paris at that beginning of March when like buyers were cancelling appointments and Italy had like closed down. Or I can't remember. And I still have this memory of like leaving Anna in Singapore. Like, so we flew to Singapore together and then I flew on to New Zealand and she left for Melbourne. And I was like, this will blow over. I'll see you in 3 weeks. And then like, I didn't see her for 7 months.
Yeah, wow.
Until she moved back to New Zealand from Melbourne. But so that time, no one could have expected what that would do for business. And I remember in the beginning we were terrified. Like we were terrified that would we make any sales? Yeah. Like was this the beginning of the end? Like was it over before it started?
Mm-hmm. But I will say the juxtaposition of that is a lot of businesses had success straight after COVID coming out of that, like in the Roundhouse, for example.
Totally.
Huge success because people were inviting more people into their homes and wanted, you know, so success came maybe at a time for you where there was the rest of the world may have been in a certain level of grief or whatever, but each to their own. So
but you know when there's like a number of things that align that make the perfect
storm or whatever
we want to call it. Like,
Yeah.
perfect recipe. I don't know. All the ingredients were there. But, you know, it was that thing of people were at home and they were really sort of assessing their surroundings. And
there was investment in
in that home space. And then it was we were new and everyone loves to discover something new.
And doing all the right things by the planet.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then we had designed a checkerboard towel, and this was before checkerboard as a trend had, like, taken off or, like, hit the spotlight. And that towel did all the work, you know, like that was this like bright star.
Do you think that checkerboard had something to do with checkerboard taking off?
It's not in my personality to even be able to like say. Sure.
I don't know. I hit the zeitgeist.
Sure. Why not? Let's have a little fun. But it definitely wasn't a thing for about, I'd say, 9 months. To a year after we launched that
And then
towel.
checkerboard became people's personalities.
It sure did.
Yeah.
Those people need to calm down and show a little bit of restraint.
They need whatever's next.
But the whole thing with the checkerboard for us, and when we designed it, you know, that's the thing. It was never seen as a trend piece. It was more that, you know, we wanted something classic like a stripe, but we wanted something a little bit more graphic, and it felt really nostalgic, you know, because it's, you know, tile formations and I don't know, different patterns and prints and textiles. Like it's been we didn't invent checkerboard. It's been around a very long time.
Yeah, you just made it a bit better.
And that was the thing. And to me, it was timeless still. And I still believe it is. Like, I think
it is.
That's the thing. Someone can take something and it can go off on its own journey, but at the end of the day, like if it's true to its form, then it can be timeless.
Yes. In the process of you guys designing and signing off on things, do you ever get to the point where you're like certain that and you wipe your hands, kind of dust off your hands, great, that's the design that we're going with? Or internally as a creative director, are you like, fuck, I hope this works?
I think you're always. I mean, I will scrutinise till the end. Even
that creative direction, that ideology of something's never finished is usually faced with, well, I can't change it now because the calendars you get moved along.
Yeah,
but you don't necessarily.
We don't have that. So, and that's the beauty of what we've created with Bainer is that we can take our time.
But how do you know when it's done?
You have to just call it. I think. I don't know, like. But I don't. That doesn't mean you have the confidence in it necessarily. Yeah. I think it's taken a really long time for me to be able to actually like realize that my gut is actually a good like measure.
Navigator, yeah.
And I think, Anna and I, for sure, we will see something and go, "This is going to be really great."
Yeah.
But not in the sense of like, oh my God, this is going to be a sellout, or it's you have that quiet confidence. I think it's quiet confidence, and it's also, I don't know, that if you're proud of it and you look at it and you go, I'm really proud of that design, then sometimes too, if it doesn't work as well as you thought it would, or it does better than you expected, I can't say it's irrelevant. I run a business, but
yeah.
I think the measure for me is knowing that whatever we put out, we're proud of.
Yeah.
And again, like I refuse to put out something that I would never put out something that I wasn't proud of.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's the test.
When you do your campaigns, where do you start? Maybe the current header, the campaign on the website right now. On the left hand, there's two images side by side. The left hand side is stacked concrete slabs, and the right hand side is a beautiful girl on profile. Does she have her hair up, or is she wrapped in a towel?
Good question.
Okay, we'll pull it up.
I think she's wrapped in a towel. Is she standing on a block of concrete? Let's have a look.
We shall see.
Oh, she's wrapped. Well done.
She's wrapped.
You looked at it.
Yeah, I've been looking at it.
Looking at
I've been looking at it for a while. It's been a week of Baina.
It's a good question to ask because our product's evergreen. So what I mean by that is, we design new collections, we release them into the world, and then they become another layer of like the brand. So they don't. Yeah. We're not seasonal, so they don't move on. They're a permanent part of our offering. And so the Grid collection is one of the launch collections, so it's been around for 4.5 years.
Is that what this one is?
Yeah.
Okay.
The sage and chalk colourway with the checkerboard, and then the bath towel that's kind of more grid-like in design. So that's been around. It's evolved in terms of we've built it out in terms of SKU, but essentially the design is from the very beginning. And so we have to reshoot every now and then to provide fresh imagery. And
how often do you do that?
With Grid, don't think we shot it for like maybe at least 2 years.
What comes up in the appetite? Is it just?
It's more like we'll say I'll say I think we need to refresh this imagery.
Right.
Like I want
to see
to
move units to be like this.
No, it's just more like again like if even if we as a team have looked at it for too long, it's like we want to see this in a new light. We want to see this reimagined, like especially too as bathroom trends change. It's like trying to, maybe not this shoot particularly because it wasn't shot in a bathroom, but if we ever do shoot in a bathroom, it's like showing like the versatility of that design, and it can be placed in this space or it can be placed in this space. And with Grid, obviously, it kind of sits on this cusp where if misinterpreted, it can become too playful to how I envisage it being seen.
Right.
So I think for me with this collection shoot, this campaign shoot in particular, it was about elevating it beyond like this quite poppy playful space, and so that those materials of like the hard concrete and again like the grid-like formation that those concrete slabs created, that's where that idea came from.
Right.
And so a really good friend of mine, her partner Felix, is amazing with like sculpture design and product design, and I reached out to him and said like, would you like to create some pieces to like go in this shirt? And so we talked about like materiality, and it was mainly different forms of concrete that we wanted to work with. And on the day he was incredible, and he like built these sculptures in studio, and then we shot that campaign with Hannah Scott Stevenson, who we hadn't shot with before, but who I now absolutely adore, and I think just captures the essence of the brand so beautifully. We also did a motherhood series with her recently, and like, again, it's just divine. Like, she's a very emotive photographer, I think, and captures, lighting, everything was just perfect. And so, and then, I don't know, that's how it came together. And I just, sometimes I go through phases where I'm like, I want this almost like quite sparse, statuesque, portraiture style shoot. And then it'll be like, okay, I want this more emotive, not documentative, but definitely like more, I don't know, like in situ, I guess, kind of shoot. I think for me and for Anna, the goal for most of the shoots generally is for it to feel real, in the sense of like not contrived. If we're at the beach, you're at the beach, you're in the water. We're not trying to create the idea of swimming, you are swimming. Or like we're not trying to capture the idea of you relaxing in a bath, you are relaxing in a bath. Like it just, So that's generally where we start with the shoot, is what we're shooting, so what the collection is that we're shooting, and then really looking at it and either looking at the narrative of what it was originally inspired by, which I guess is what this shoot that we're talking about, I guess in some way comes from, or what space do we ultimately see this towel being used in, or what feeling do we want to capture from these images.
How far in advance do you work?
Not that far.
Yeah.
It's not, again, it's not like fashion. We're not selling indent. We buy stock, or we place orders before we sell the collection because of the timing, the way it works. So like generally, obviously in fashion, you sell from a lookbook, you take orders, and then you produce accordingly. Whereas like our stock is already generally on a ship before we've even sold it to our wholesalers.
Right.
So, I mean, we're about to shoot early May. We're planning that shoot now, so that's like a month out, and that collection will launch end of July.
Right. That's actually quite a bit of time.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels so rushed. Not rushed, but it feels like it's...
There's been more
like,
rushed, for sure.
Oh, I'm sure there has, in the sense of...
Yeah.
The planning is great.
Yes.
Again, that is the difference. A fashion shoot, there's samples coming in the morning of. Like, I've had these samples with me for like 6 months.
You've lived with them too. Yeah, okay.
So, no, that is definitely a slower pace to what a traditional...
Like as a video creator, sometimes I'm on set with things and they're like, we need it on Monday. And I'm like,
yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm not getting my weekend. But
we probably
that
have
feels
like a
roomy.
Two-week turnaround.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you haven't shot yet that you're like, oh, I'd love to do that?
Oh, always.
Like pipe dream?
I think it's more generally like creatives. Like I'll come across a photographer that I'll be like, one day, like I'd love to work with.
Who's the dream?
It. Oh.
Like Jürgen Teller or something?
Honestly, it changes all the time. I won't say, but there's a photographer that we might be shooting with on a project later in the year. And while...
Are they Australian or international?
No, international.
Okay.
But definitely has been on my radar for a very long time. And so if this all comes together, then that would be exciting. But then too, like, you know, we shot... One of my most favourite campaigns is the robe campaign that we did last year. And, of course, typical me, I can't tell you exactly where we shot it. Somewhere in the Nordics.
Enough on your mind, it's fine.
Somewhere in the Nordics. But that photographer I'd, never heard of before. I still can't remember how we discovered them. But those images. Like that was like a real, not risk, I hate to say risk because that feels like there was doubt, but it was a real leap of faith, I guess, in a way of like, it was a new category for us and we weren't there, you know, like we weren't on set creatively. It was like, we'll just send, we did all, obviously like all the communication and a lot of mood boards and shot lists and all of that kind of stuff, but what came back, you know? Sometimes it's just like pure magic and you can't really quite believe how well it all came together.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily, I think, again, with everything that goes on in Baina and how crazy sometimes it all feels, my brain can't think beyond today.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. When you create these shoots, your literal process of gathering.
Yeah.
We touched on before we hit record that there's just things in your saved and you've seen things, and then when it comes about to do a shoot, you're sort of already 1 foot in because you've been moseying.
Yeah.
Is that how you begin, or is it kind of, do you have a unique creative process in the sense that you do anything in particular when you're thinking?
Yeah, I don't think we, you know, I think it starts, as you said, like there is time. We always kind of know the year ahead what we need to shoot. We don't know what those shoots look like, of course, but we know when they're going to fall and generally what the product is that we're shooting.
Right.
So that's a great starting point. But I have a habit of just whenever I see an image, whether it's on Instagram or in a magazine or on Pinterest, I will save it in a folder somewhere. It's not a great organised system, but it'll do for me, you know. And then that's where I go to begin that like concepting stage.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very visual person and I find it very hard to articulate what I can see in my mind.
Yeah,
so the
right.
more I can visually like have reference points,
it
obviously helps everyone on the team.
Yeah.
Otherwise, me trying to explain it verbally, it can often be a bit of a
nightmare. It's tricky. I work with enterprise businesses a lot, and they're not mood boarders. They are PR people. And the PR teams, when they try and articulate what they want but don't have the practice of creating a literal mood board for people to get on the same page, is so dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
It's so
That's
hectic.
the thing. You're essentially asking someone to read your mind.
Yeah.
Because every person's creative handwriting is individualistic to them.
Yes, totally different.
And generally, we all imagine. So, like, we are imagining visual ideas. So to then try and convert that visual into something written, it's not conducive to the way I work.
One of my favourite things to ask one of my girlfriends, if we've like read the same book, is to be like, what do you reckon their room looks like?
Yeah, or what do you reckon they look like?
Yeah, and what's their haircut or something? And it's so interesting.
Totally. I don't know. I'm now really going off on a tangent, but you know, we all watched we all read Normal People.
Yes.
And it's not often that I will read a book that then becomes a TV show.
Yeah.
But when they first, like the first ever stills that I saw for the launch of that TV series, I was like, that is just so far from how I imagined those two main characters. And then obviously I watched the series, fell in love like everyone else in the world, and we were all fine. But it's funny when you're confronted with something that you've visually imagined and sat with for so long, and then you're presented with something that's completely different because it is that other person's interpretation. It's really like, to me it's dangerous. So I think I'm a bit of a control freak in that way, where it's really nice to be able to just have that visual reference. It's almost like a record of like, this is what we need.
What I found really interesting recently, because I worked I did a lot of stuff with the tennis for the Australian Open, and then also in fashion with shoots, they tend to drop down the greens quite a bit because they don't want it to be that neon.
Yeah,
you sort of make things a little bit more foresty in terms of any lawn or anything that people are shooting.
Yeah.
So when someone says green to me, I see a very different green to what you see.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Totally.
But even if somebody says, "Oh, let's do it outside on the beach."
What kind of beach? Do you want a rocky beach? Do you want yellow sand? Do you want white sand? Do you want waves? Do you want calm?
And everything matters because all of it totally, it changes everything.
Oh, yeah. No, I completely agree, especially on
Even
that point.
cement, like looking at this.
Yeah.
There are so many different types of formations here.
And you have to go back and forth because imagine it's really great when you work with someone who does get your vision, but you can't bank on that always happening, and for sure, like I loved in this formation that's on the website, the variance in tone of concrete, how you've got like some very like kind of creamy, milky colours mixed with that very breeze block sort of mid-tone grey and then some like sharp dark
almost
charcoals.
like a marbly looking.
Because it obviously is like adding to the dimensions of the piece. But again, like you can't just say concrete. You can't.
No.
What do you think you're going to get back?
At all. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's
So,
wild.
Yes, everything has a mood board. Everything needs a visual identity before you go into it. And again, like, Baina, our team is a testament to like who we are as well. And we have this incredible head of marketing, Simone, and her and I work very closely on the shoots, and she produces everything. And we are very similar in personality as well. And so I think just being able to, there's that trust and that understanding, and she intrinsically knows what Bainer is as well. So we get it, and that really helps with the success of pulling together a campaign shoot. We're on the same page.
It's so helpful when they get it. I'm hiring a junior art director at the moment, and I was like on the JD, it was like, please send me 3 Instagram accounts that you adore, and 1 shoot that you wish you created.
Oh,
and
I like
half
that.
the bloody applicants didn't even do it, and I was like, you're in the bin. You didn't even follow instructions.
Well,
but the
not a good
others,
start.
my mind is now blown because I've found so many sick new Instagram accounts that I'm like, how did I not know this existed? But
totally.
But understanding people's taste from what they put in. There's one girl, I already know I'm going to hire her because I'm like, you are a jet. And the way she wrote the email, like everything was
on
but
point.
when they get it, the taste visually,
Totally.
explosion, so good.
Huge.
You've got things on the website like obviously your campaign imagery, but then you also have your things like Submerge and Motherhood. What do you call those? Series. Yeah. So firstly, I think all brands should be doing series regardless because they are such a good way to let creativity be creative rather than think of SKUs and ROIs and moving units.
Totally.
How do you guys collaborate with your, I guess,
the different
creative teams? And are you briefing or are people coming to you?
I would say that 99% of it is us briefing. I think people do come along that feel right every now and then. I think it's hard. You do get inundated with people wanting to create content, especially now in the world that we live in. But it has to be right, and it has to be the right fit.
Do you guys do that, gift in exchange for content and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we do that. But again,
has to be.
It's not. Actually, do you know what? We don't gift for content in the sense of what you just said, because we are very considered around the type of content that we share or use. And so, again, it comes from a place that we're driving.
Yeah, why take the risk?
We do gift like any other brand probably does from a PR perspective, but not in the sense of like so that we get imagery back.
Not in exchange for assets that you would use. Yeah, absolutely.
However, like, motherhood series.
In this part of the episode, the camera work becomes a little bit interesting. This was the first time that we were using DSLRs to record both myself and the guest. Previous to this, we were an iPhone kind of production, and one of the cameras died. It then became quite complicated, and you're about to just see me for a bit, and then you'll just see Bailey for a bit. And I'm really sorry. I'm a one-woman show. I hope you forgive me. I'm working on it. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the episode.
Yeah, it generally involves product because they need product to be able to, sometimes like they'll have Bainer themselves, or it's a way of introducing the brand to them, and then them getting to have their own creative sort of exploration of how they would shoot it in their homes or on their person or whatever the shoot might be. But generally there's an overarching theme of what those series look like, but in the sense of being controlling around what or how they shoot it, that's up to the that's not on us. That's up to them. Because, again, you want that creative expression of that individual to come through. And the reason that we've collaborated with that person is because we admire whether it's their aesthetic or...
Have you ever not liked what someone did?
No. Do you know that? We've never not...
That's so good.
We've never
you've
not
chosen
used...
really well, you know.
But that's the thing, and that's what I mean, around that process. It's not just people coming to us and asking and us saying yes.
Yeah.
Again, we look at different people that we admire, people that we find interesting. And again, that's not really me anymore, in the sense of, I think all the people that I love and adore are on that list, and if and when we get to work with them, great. But yeah, it's a process that both our head of marketing and editorial lead take care of. But no, it's such what's really sweet as well is the content will come back, and we have obviously got to work Slack, and those images will get shared, and we'll be like, oh my God, look at this beautiful imagery that so-and-so shot. We're all very invested in those pieces because they're really interesting. And again, it's such a nice way to see how the brand is interpreted.
Yeah.
It
must be incredible
cool.
as well, seeing it in someone's home, but not just on Instagram. It's very artistically.
For sure.
Like the Hannah Scott Stevenson one where she's in the bath covering her eyes and her little one is behind her.
Yeah.
With some sort of incredible expression. That photo will last that child's entire lifetime.
Totally, and I don't think you can capture that if there's too much of a strong brief
vibe. Yes, totally.
It's use the product and shoot it how you'd use it.
Yeah.
That's sort of really what the brief is.
It's very fly on the wall.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So talk to me about Submerge, a recent one that you did, and there was a beautiful curve model in the water. How did that come about? What were your kind of dot points? If the brief is so lean, what are you literally providing for that?
So yeah, there's a difference between, so Submerge to us is just a form of campaign.
Right.
But it's telling a story beyond just a new launch of a collection, I guess. Whereas things like the Motherhood series and Bainer Bathe, that is that more collaborative, reaching out to somebody and connecting with them. So with Submerge, it's all about the different types of bathing, generally around swimming, in the sense of because it highlights our pool towels, or puts a spotlight on the pool towels. So the first one we did, we shot with Rob Tennant, and that was all about sort of being alone at the beach. And we shot north of Sydney. Don't ask me what beach, but yeah, it was this
was that with Frankie?
Yep.
Yeah, she's a Melbourne girl. Yeah. Hi, Frankie, if you're listening.
And yeah, so that captured that idea.
Yeah.
And then the latest one, who we shot with Lisa Sorghini, was all around rock pools and just sort of floating. This idea of just floating. And Lisa has been a photographer that I have admired for such a long time. Her work is beautiful, very documentative. And always wanted, again, I think generally when we have the concept, so this idea of wanting to shoot in rock pools and get this sort of more fly on the wall type feeling of some of the shots, it then is okay, whose work feels like it would fit. So then it was this is the chance to work with Lisa. I think this is, and she shoots the female form so beautifully as well. That was the other major draw card, was we wanted to be a little bit more celebration, we wanted to celebrate the body a little bit with the shoot, in the sense of just being free in water, and how amazing that can feel. And so again, Lisa felt the perfect fit for that campaign.
You're one of the only brands that is based in Sydney that is not flogging Wiley's baths. And what's in your palette that is so far turning you away from that?
Not at all turning me away. I think it's more just, it's not a conscious decision, but probably, yes, searching for a little bit more untouched.
Yeah.
But also too, sometimes the backdrop of a shoot is actually irrelevant in the sense of we've shot at Clovelly before. Mm-hmm. Can you tell it's Clovelly? Not Probably sure. Not, you know, like depending on the way in which we're shooting and like how close up we are to the subject, or you know, a beach can sometimes just be a beach. But we, you know, for the latest Submerge shoot, we wanted rock pools.
Yeah.
And we wanted this more, the color palette, you know, the towels that we were highlighting in that shoot really like leaned into those more like deepened tones. And so it just, that was the sort of brief for that. And then again, it's amazing how a shoot can come together. You think it's going, you know, you think you're going to follow a certain path of how you're going to get to that outcome. And then through conversation generally, it takes a completely different turn. And so it was actually Lisa that was like, well, I know this amazing area up near me, because it was up somewhere like past Byron, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, so like northern New South Wales.
Yeah. And it's always the uniqueness that person will bring to it.
Totally.
It's
and
so
I think it's also too like, you know, when someone's enthusiastic about an area and same with models, like, you know, again, we have a board of models, and that comes from whether I've seen a shoot somewhere else or I've, again, seen
board of
something
models
in a
you want to
magazine.
work with.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And so that's where that selection comes from. It's like girls or boys or whoever I've seen, they're on a board, and when the shoot feels right and the vibe of that shoot and the concept of that shoot feels like it fits with this person, then that's who we go after first. And then the realities of shooting. Models are travelling, photographers are unavailable, locations are either like, you know, prohibited, whatever it might be. So there's the reality of pulling off a campaign shoot as well.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. I spoke to Charlie Fraser, was one of the last guests that I had on the Indigenous Supermodel, and she was reiterating that campaign shoots as a model, when you're essentially judged on your face and what you look like, it's really, really not often about you.
Yeah.
You're actually probably the last piece in a very creative puzzle, and often it can really come down to things that have nothing to do with you.
Yeah. I mean, there will always be a goal or like, you know, a choice.
The look and the vibe,
what you want. And sometimes you get everything on your wish list, and sometimes you have to compromise.
Yeah.
And when I say compromise, that sounds like it's a negative, but it's more just like you have to be fluid in this.
Sometimes they turn out better than you could.
Absolutely.
It's so good.
Totally. You can't be rigid.
Yeah.
I think is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're physically designing the towels, how often do you guys go into design?
Again, it's
like twice a year?
Oh, no, it's probably more like 3 to 4 times a year.
And is it calendar, kind of like you kind of know when you got to do it?
It really needs to be more structured than what it is right now.
Okay.
More because I think I'm always worried I'll miss a beat if I don't have it scheduled in. But I think, you know, for the most part, I do know when it's time to start designing again. And we do it in like bursts. So we'll like, I don't know, mood board, I'll concept maybe like 3 or 4 ideas. And then Anna and I will work over them, and we'll talk about like details, or colour obviously is a huge informer of how we're designing. Sometimes colour comes first, or sometimes like I'll concept, because in some ways that feels quite easy to me, like just the visuals and like what the feeling is and what I want this towel to play in the greater collection of Bainer, or who the customer is. That, you know, there's a lot of that too. It's very formulaic in some ways, and then it's very open and freeing in another. Like it's always a balance.
Are you very like WGSN trend
absolutely
oriented?
No, because again, I think that if you're chasing an idea, that's been informed so heavily by something else, then when you come to reflect on yourself, you don't recognize who you are. Like, I think that's really important to Anna and I, is I try not to follow other towel brands on Instagram. I try not to follow anything that I feel like would either make me feel uncomfortable or self-conscious, or worried or anything, jealous, any of those feelings that would then maybe inform how I approached my own brand. Of course, I need to know what's going on in the world. You know, like I need to know what's out there. And I think being a successful business person is knowing what's either coming for you or, you know, ahead of you. But for the most part, we try to be really insular in the way that we design and create content and like our messaging and all of that. Because I think when you look to others, it just, you end up losing yourself a little bit.
Have you ever had the experience where you've looked at others and gotten jealous or it's brought up something in you?
Not from a design perspective.
Yeah.
If anything, I think where it can be easy to feel maybe inferior is around brands that are obviously bigger or doing on the outside
growth
doing better and growth is big or clearly they've got like bigger budgets for things or, you know, expand whatever it might be. And again, like it's easy to do that comparison, I think. And I think anyone who's striving to succeed would have that natural like desire to compare because you're measuring essentially like how well you're doing against somebody else. And that's the competitive streak in me. But again, like we try to stay not grounded, but we try to just like the goal is always to stay in our lane and to do what we do really well and to be proud of what it is that we're producing. And I think just continuing to strengthen what Bainer is. And I think that comes down to like consistency.
Yeah.
And so again, like if you're looking to others, trying different things, maybe we try shoot like this, or maybe we try design a towel that's more like this or whatever, then you're just diluting that brand and essentially then weakening its equity and, you know, and confusing your end customer. Like the goal should always be to see an image without the logo on it and be like, that's a Bainer image.
Yeah, right. Okay.
You know? Or, same with the just, I think that to me like kind of is what we're striving for is,
I did a personal episode on the podcast in March and I called him Steve, the guy that yells at you, that creator that's like, there's not one creator. I don't mean like there's a guy called Steve, but he's an umbrella.
Yeah.
Of the people that are like, if you're not doing this, you're this.
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, shut the fuck up, Steve. Yeah. And it's so, like the amount of creators that are, there's a difference between curiosity of like, I picked up a VHS cam today and I interpreted my style with that technique.
Yes.
But there's such a really intense push for creators to continuously put out new things in terms of different styles, all of that. And I think everybody's so keen to get work.
Totally.
That they're diluting everything that they stand for. Yeah. So they stand for nothing.
Yeah.
Ben J, who is from Made in Partners, looked at my entire catalogue as a director about 3 months ago because he was thinking about changing the way that his company works and he was interested in signing me as a director. And he's like, the best work you did was in 2016. And I was like, that's because I wasn't trying to sell anything in 2016. I was purely exploring. Everything else has an agenda of sell that towel, sell that sheet, sell that Kmart gadget, sell that dress. And although that hurt me, and I don't really think that that's true necessarily.
No, it's
and
not
that's
one person's opinion.
Yes, absolutely. It was fascinating to see. And he's like, why was that? And it's very obvious why.
Yes, but if we all ran around just going like, oh, but we're just going to create, then again, like, I don't know, to me that's like a very idealistic way of looking at it. Like we've you know, we're businesses that need to succeed and like we've created product or we've created services that we need to sell to make money, to run a business and support staff and whatever it might be. So it is a balance. But I do agree with if you're not doing it to sort of tick a box or to please or get approval from a certain somebody, then I think that's where the best work comes from. If you're doing it based on what's true to you and your brand, and then that's going to ring true.
How do you feel about that in the age of social media where they're like volume is...
there's a number of things in the world right now that I, you know, from a work perspective that I go, I can't believe we have to do this.
Like what?
Like digital marketing.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think I'm ever going to get on board with digital marketing.
Like which elements? Like an EDM and...
No.
Or
Like
SEO
like Facebook, Instagram advertising and, that, I think. I mean, I don't even know what it's called. That's how much I don't want to get on board with it.
Okay, true.
No, but yeah, there are things in business now, again, as the world changes that you have to do. You have to adapt and respond.
Yes.
Social media it's a beast. Again, it also sounds like it's ever evolving. I feel like I'm not educated enough in, the world of meta and everything. We don't do TikTok. I think I'm too old in the sense to understand it. And it's also how many more layers or how many more outlets, I should say, does one person need to consume?
Yeah.
If I look at Instagram and I look at Pinterest and I read some Substacks and I read some news outlets, let's say, that's enough. If you were and I have to check TikTok and I have to, what is it now? X. I have to write, I don't know, but and I get 50 EDMs a day. I don't know. I just think I try, again, in my own personal life, I try to do less is more. I think for us, we focus on a select amount of channels.
To do those well.
And to do them well.
Yeah, being everywhere is so hectic.
But it is a world we live in. I was reading an article. Where was that? It might have been on hers, I think. But it was about, I think they interviewed some photographers. And again, it's that same thing. It's all just about more. Everyone needs to consume more. Our attention spans don't exist anymore, I feel like that's happening to me. My recall is terrible. I can't actually retain any information because I think I'm consuming all day.
Yeah.
And so, it's really hard, I think, for any creative to produce good work if they're having to think about all of those outlets, all of those channels. And if you're thinking about fashion, all of those collections, all of those shirts, all of the content.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's too much.
So I think, again, same as the design. I'm proud of the work that we do. I'm proud of the EDMs that we produce. I'm proud of the images and the campaigns that we shoot and the content that we make around the different series that we run. They all make sense for the brand. They all speak to the brand in a way that is, to me, necessary.
Yeah.
I think in this world, that's the best that I can do is be proud of it and to feel like it makes sense. I think the day that we're producing stuff that either I'm not proud of or I'm I don't see the point. What is the purpose of this?
Yeah.
And that's obviously when you've got to start questioning what you're doing.
How do you guys grow when you don't have that mindset of constant output in the calendar?
Yeah.
You guys, you have a team of 8, soon to be 10?
8, soon to be 10. I think, again, from the beginning, Anna and I always wanted to try and be sustainable with that growth. We are a self-funded company, which means that, there are limitations on the pace in which we grow, but it's also controlled and we're growing in the way that we want to grow and we're making those decisions. And
is it tricky with growth? When we say growth, if you were another retailer or another brand, I would imagine that it's, okay, you want to get by 2025, you want to be in X amount of stores, or you want to be shipping to X amount of countries, therefore digital marketing, PR and all of that into said country. Is that what does growth actually look like for you?
Yeah, growth, I think, again, we're very considered about where we place the brand. So I think, yes, we have growth ambitions and goals, whether it's revenue goals or expansion and distribution goals or brand growth goals. I think for us it's just about we set a target. It's I say it's achievable. It's conservative or, like it's not overly ambitious.
Like we could do this.
Yeah, this is, or like, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? Or where we've, over the last 4.5 years, we've expanded globally.
Yeah.
There's still so much territory to cover, of course. But I think it's about what I have learned over the last 4.5 years is about you've got to do it well. You only kind of, I don't know, maybe you don't only get one chance. But I think if we're going to invest in a new market or invest in a category or whatever it might be, development, etc., then again, like you've got to take the time to work through all the steps to know that like you can support that growth.
Yeah.
I think during COVID, we had a lot of organic growth and that was amazing. But you also then need the infrastructure around it to sustain it. And so I think that's how we're approaching it now is like when I say sustainable growth, it's like we can manage it, we can keep it up, we can service it, we can support it. Because in order to be successful in a new market, you do need that sort of 360 approach to supporting the brand, whether it's PR, digital marketing, distribution, logistics.
You're talking about at the start of this chat, you were saying that you're going into a more commercial.
Yep, so that's like a new line for us. So that's a commercial collection, which means it would be targeted to commercial spaces. So hospitality, hotels, spas.
Oh.
It's a completely different product. It's called Hotel Bainer.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, obsessed. Yeah. Great.
But again, like...
there's a need for it.
Totally. And we're really excited about it. And I think I think there's definitely a place, especially in the way in which people travel now is different and what they want out of their travel and where they stay.
My parents used to own a hotel in South Yarra called The Lyle.
I used to stay at the
Did
Lyle
you really?
when I was in fashion and I did fashion sales from there.
Oh, yes.
Cute.
Yes.
They don't own it anymore.
No, they sold it November 2022. They did a massive renovation and right before they opened the doors, they got a great offer, so they took it. Been very strange on the family. We're all really homesick.
Yeah,
it opened last week with the new owners and it is such a strange feeling.
Did you live in the hotel?
I have lived in there.
Yeah.
Like it's 28 years old now and I'm 31, so I've spent my whole life there. And I feel so homesick. And I can't talk about it because I'll start crying.
Okay.
The shake that just happened in my voice. But so the dinner table conversations that my parents used to fucking have about towels, holy shit.
Yeah.
It's a beast, but so beautiful when you go into a hotel and that is.
Totally.
That's really fun.
Yeah,
to
no, it's
expand
exciting.
into that.
But again, so it's like it's a different revenue stream. It's a different like channel for us. That takes time. That's been in the, like we're soft launching it at the moment in the sense of we're presenting it. We're in that presentation phase. I think we started in 2021.
So you know how hotels have sometimes got like a Dyson in and they market that they're Dyson products. Would people say, oh, we've got Baina towels?
Yeah.
But okay, right. So you're not white labeling your production.
No.
It's fully branded
It's
Baina.
branded.
Wow.
Hotel Bainer.
I love that.
Yeah.
Is it much different in its identity or is it just similar in like
No, I'd
the
say it's
style?
pretty different. Because again, the requirements of a hotel are completely different to a residential space.
Yes.
Like everything is different. And we've really like challenged every sort of facet of it to then understand what where you land, like again, that original concept and idea of what we set out to, what we thought it would look like to where it lands is so different.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's all about that like research and like being informed and understanding and listening to the customer. I think, again, in those first few years, and still now, but it's just different because we're a different business to where we were a few years ago. But that direct consumer feedback was like pure gold to Anna and I. And we still live by that now. It's just not Anna and I at the end of that email. It's
someone else is
Mags,
reading
who's
it.
Like amazing and so fantastic in that space. But you need to know what people need or want or how they react to something to then be able to ensure that what you're also giving them. At the end of the day, towels are a very practical item.
Yes.
And they serve a purpose. They do a job. And so what does that look like for the different like environments in which it sits.
You guys told Broadsheet that you took 18 months to design robes.
Yeah.
What took you so long? No offense. What took 18 months?
Fit,
Oh, okay.
design details,
Yeah.
silhouette, and then sampling.
Yeah.
Sampling takes
it's
a
such a beast,
long
isn't it?
time. Basically, like, because terry, like the cloth itself has to be woven. Like, I guess the same as if you were like using a printed silk or a jacquard. Like, they have to weave it specific to the design, and then they make it. And I think just in general, like lead times on towels are long. You know, and like they're
Like how long?
like 12 weeks for the manufacturing from production. That's just production. 8 weeks for a sample.
Yeah, okay. So that's
And
2
then-
months
and then,
to
like-
get it.
Yeah.
Jesus, and then it's got to get here.
Yeah, and so production, like everything we sea freight, except, you know, samples we air freight because there's one, but any sort of like actual production orders we have to sea freight. That right now takes like nearly 4 months, depending on
Sea
what's
freight.
going on in the world.
The world.
Yeah. Takes a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you-
and so you can't be reactive
Yeah.
in so many ways. So, yeah, stock that we would have ordered in December will be here in July.
Wow. Fuck, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And you store it all in New Zealand?
No,
Or do
so
you
we
have a
have
3PL?
We have 3PLs in 5 countries.
It's so exciting, all the growth. So
Yeah.
if someone said, what's next for Baina, what would you say? Because we've touched on a few, but
Yeah.
what's like the biggest one that you're like,
Continuing with international expansion is definitely a key focus for us. Direct to consumer is doing really well, and so that's a focus for us this year. Obviously, Hotel Bainer and launching that, and then also just supporting the brand and supporting the Bainer customer and like potentially expanding beyond toweling. We have a baby towel launching.
that's going to be great for the motherhood series?
Totally.
Great.
But it's a really beautiful piece and kind of has a bit of a, I don't want to say heritage vibe, but you know, like you could monogram it if you wanted to. And so it's got
what
this
a good
like
gift.
Yeah, perfect gift for an expecting parent. And then we have a really exciting collaboration coming out in July, which I can't say who it's with, but it's with an international furniture designer.
Okay.
So that's exciting. Launching, did I say end of July?
Is that a limited
End of
edition
August.
run?
Yeah, limited edition.
Sick.
And then something perfect for the Southern Hemisphere at the end of October. But yeah, this year feels like a big year of launch, but that's what I mean. There's no sort of set agenda for how we launch product.
Yeah.
This year there's quite a few things, but they're all like little,
Yeah.
the baby towel's just one baby towel with some face cloths. It's a gorgeous little set. And then the collaboration's a collaboration. It's limited edition, so it's exciting. And then
What's stimulating you that like you're like, oh,
I have to say that right now, like the thing that I get the most enjoyment out of seeing or reading is hers.
yeah, it's very good, isn't
It's
it?
very good. I love the latest Jill Sander collection. I love anything generally that Jill Sander puts out. I love archival Jill Sander more than I love new Jill Sander. But
You feel like a Jill Sander woman.
I do.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on the pod.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so
It was
excited.
a fun chat.
This
Great first date.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? Amazing. And I love that you stayed at the Lyle. That makes just
Oh my
all
gosh,
the depths
all
of
the
everything feel
time.
so good.
And I've got so many cute stories.
I
when
wish
first arrived.
that Hotel Baina
I know.
and could have harmoniously come to life.
Perfect.
But I'm sure
pairing.
in another iteration. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. We drop episodes every single week. So hit the subscribe button and we'll see you next Sunday.